We had talked earlier, I guess on and off the last few weeks here, about the restaurant industry is kind of waiting and see what happens. There's a court ruling coming up that will seriously impact the restaurant industry.
John Sellek has more details about that.
Yeah, we're going to go to John right now. And basically, it has to do with a minimum wage increase. If the court rules against the restaurant's interests, their tipped employees are going to have to be paid a lot more than they are now, and that is going to impact owners and workers as well. John Sellek from Harbor Strategies in Lansing on the line. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning, Ron. Thanks for having me. I'm enjoying the show. I love how you bring all the listeners' comments in here. I've been listening all morning. You got news from Moscow, Russia, all the way to Moscow, Idaho. You're kind of covering the waterfront today.
Well, nice to put it. We should get you and write our promos, John, from Moscow, Russia to Moscow, Idaho. So what is... a little background. I just referenced this is a court ruling. What court rules, and when do we expect this ruling to come down that will impact restaurants?
Sure. Well, the short story with this particular issue, you're going to see a lot in the news about the minimum wage because scheduled increases in the full minimum wage are starting to kick in for next year under previous laws that were altered in 2018. But this particular issue is just about the tipped workers, your waiters and waitresses and your bartenders. People take on those unique jobs. For the main reason is that they can earn way more than minimum wage. They get paid a lower minimum wage as their base rate, about $3.75. But they take those jobs because, as they reported to us, they make an average of at least $25 an hour. And I think we know, in our tourist areas in the summer, they're making $30, $40, or $50 an hour doing these jobs. And because of that court ruling, this whole system, their way of life, their income is about to be obliterated if something isn't done by February. And we had two routes to try to fix it, Ron, actually. One was the legislature. Maybe dangerous to count on that, but they were in their lame duck session until about 2 a.m. last night. Your excellent state senator, Wayne Schmidt, had introduced a new bill that could have been a vehicle to come up with some kind of solution to protect the tip wage system and stop the impact of that court ruling. But unfortunately, the legislature and the governor didn't come to any kind of an agreement. So now we are basically stuck waiting for the courts to make a decision. They have a hearing on December 13th next week, and we're expecting to hear that ruling then come out sometime by January. So we've got a lot of work to do.
So the restaurant employees, tipped employees, waiters, waitresses, bartenders, it's been tough on the owners through the pandemic. A lot of restaurants closed. A lot of employees left the industry because it was so tenuous. They were open, then they were closed, then it was part-time, et cetera. And now you have, I guess, another threat to the restaurant workers here. How will it impact, you think, the tipped employees, say, if the court rules in favor of the higher minimum wage for tip workers? Will they be happy about that? Will they make more money, or how do you see that playing out?
Well, it's interesting. I'm working with a group called Save Michigan Restaurants. You can check it out at SaveMichiganRestaurants.com. There's so much noise in the world, as we know, about Republicans versus Democrats, or labor versus business, or conservative versus liberal. We came up with the novel idea of just going to the people who are actually affected by it, those workers, and tried to elevate their voices so they could be heard. And what they're saying is, in their experience, they're the experts. They do the work every day. They think that once customers figure out that they are being paid at the higher minimum wage, which not only will be the full minimum wage everyone else gets, but it's going to be going up, this unwritten system of taking care of our servers and our bartenders is going to go by the wayside. They're not going to think, oh, well, they get paid less on the minimum wage, so therefore I should pay attention to the kind of service they provide us. They're going to end up making the same sort of minimum wage rate that everyone else does. And these are tough jobs. And as one of them said last week, it's like being your own entrepreneur. It's in your hands to figure out how hard you're going to work, what kind of level of service you're going to provide, using your skills and your experiences to connect with your regulars. And all that's going to be broken because of this ruling from last July that said the way the legislature adopted the law was unconstitutional, and not because they didn't have the power to do it, but one of those trick things. They didn't do it in the right time frame.
Yeah, I tell you, I spent years working in the business, in the back of the house and the front of the house in management, and when I go out, I've always been a very good tipper, especially since the pandemic. I remember it was a 15%, then it went to 20%, and we've been way above that now. But you know what? As a consumer, when you see the prices go up on the menu, and they will, because if the minimum wage goes up, I've got to be honest, I might not be in that 15% range anymore.
Yeah, that's right. And so many people's first reaction is, well, of course I want to keep taking care of my people. This is what we've always done. But once you're dealing with inflation and job issues, and then you're going to the restaurant, and the prices are going to go up because we talk about the management side, like you said, the labor costs are going to instantly increase in February if this stays in place by over 200%. So an industry, like you said, has just been battered throughout the pandemic, and the public rose up to really support the restaurants, and we love and appreciate that. We couldn't even be where we're at now, despite the losses, without the public really kicking into gear and helping with curbside pickup and all that good stuff during the pandemic. But with those labor costs shooting through the roof, that money's got to come from somewhere, and it's going to either go right onto your hamburger and fries and beer, or it's going to be a surcharge on the bill, or frankly, we think hundreds, if not thousands, of restaurants may just say, I can't do the full service model anymore. I can't afford it, and I'm just going to stop. And that's one of our biggest fears, because that also eliminates those jobs where people can make way more than minimum wage.
Yeah. So if the legislature's out, as you mentioned, as of 2 a.m. today, if people supporting restaurant workers they want to weigh in, I guess, is there anything people can do if they want to make their voice heard at this point?
Yeah, there is. First and foremost, we all have access to our elevator and our own voices on social media, and we should speak up and talk about it. It's the servers that we go to every day that are our favorite bartenders. They're the ones speaking up and saying, don't break this system. This is how I earn this living. And if this changes, I'm out of here. I can't do this job. Well, you also can't just stop in at Target and make $50 an hour. No offense to Target, right?
Yep.
So we don't want the system to go away. Let's let them do this. Secondly, you still can talk to your legislators. You have a new state senator, John DeMouche. You're going to have a new state representative there, and Betsy Copia, and your John Roth is still going to be there. Still contact them. There is an opportunity potentially for the new legislature to do something, but number one, they're going to be led by the Democrats and not Republicans. We don't know how they're going to react to this. And then they don't really get started traditionally until very late into January or early February, and that may be simply too late. Governor Whitmer, to her credit, did acknowledge this is a huge issue for business. They're going to get crushed. She points the fingers at the previous legislature for the way they did this, but she's at least acknowledged that something needs to be done. So there's a sliver of hope for a future legislature to do something, and that's why I think your listeners should still reach out to them.
All right. A lot of restaurant workers right now, even though the tipped employees are making more like, $3-something an hour, when you add in their tips, they're making way above the minimum wage on average, and appear to like it like that. If this ruling goes against the restaurants and their workers, they potentially could be making less money because people may not be willing to tip as much. There may be fewer jobs because more restaurants will close, and prices on your menu will go up. So not a lot of positive to this, but it's in what court is it? The Court of Claims, or which court's going to rule on this now? Or the
Court of Claims is the one that
they ruled
did the unconstitutional ruling. It's the Michigan Court of Appeals in Detroit next Tuesday, the 13th.
All right. We'll keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, the organization that John Sellek mentioned here, was it SaveMichiganRestaurants.org?
.com.
SaveMichiganRestaurants.com for more information. All right, we have to go out on the road with Vic McCarty right now. John, I appreciate the time. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ron.
All right, John Sellek joining us there from Harbor Strategies, PR in Lansing, Harbor Strategic Public Affairs.